LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we're going to talk some politics with two very good friends and two smart analysts. I already talk about this Dow 50,000, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. Trump signed an executive order. Actually, he signed 2 executive orders going after Iran. He signed one going after Cuba. The Iranian talks have basically broken down. No surprise. There's this second wave of protests now developing inside Iran, which has collapsed. Its banking system is gone. Its currency is gone. Its economy is gone. What you got left is a bunch of mullahs and a military dictatorship. Blah, blah, blah. The death of the Washington Post. What a wonderful story that is. I don't know, the death of the Washington Post. Anyway, we got Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of the National Review, and David Webb, who's a Fox News contributor, and the David Webb Show, Sirius XM talk show host. It's very good. You know, Rich Lowry, you know that you're going to have a phenomenal bull market because Karl Rove writes, Republicans have an economy problem. All right, that was his column this week. So that's like, let me get this right. The GDP now is 4.5%. Consumer confidence, the Michigan survey, which is really a phony survey loaded up with Democrats, but that thing is up the highest in 6 months, and we just hit Dow 50,000. So Republicans have an economy problem. That's from Karl Rove, another genius, another political genius. Rich Lowry, go ahead.
So I defer to you, obviously, Larry, on all economic matters, but I think politically, the question is whether you get growth and you get higher wages such that people don't feel so much anymore the higher prices that mostly happened under Biden, right? This is a Biden problem that is biting Trump still politically because inflation goes up 8 or 9%. When the inflation rate goes lower, prices don't decline. They're just increasing at a slightly slower rate. So I think people have still felt that, at least people kind of lower down the income scale. And what you want over time is that effect to just vitiate because everyone has more dollars in their wallet. And hopefully that's what's happening.
Well, it seems to. That's what the numbers are. I had Kevin Hassett, NEC director, on yesterday, and he was saying you're getting all these refunds now from last year's tax cut bill. The refunds themselves are probably worth $1,000 to $1,500 for a middle class family, but overall, you're going to get about $4,000 in refunds. Last year was $3,000. You get about $4,000, a little more. These are big numbers. I mean, a lot of probably 60-70% of American families won't pay any taxes. Yeah, you could say that's not good. I understand, but the burden is down. Wages are rising much faster than inflation. I mean, but the stock market. David Webb. People underestimate the stock market. Not only 130 million, 135 million, roughly, people are in the stock market, one way or another. 401ks, IRAs, even union pension funds own stocks. So what you're seeing now at Dow 50,000 and this phenomenal rally, this is not nothing politically. I mean, this is a factor. Of course, no one believes it's a factor because they don't look at the stock market. But I'm telling you, it's a factor. People's wallets and wealth is rising. They're in the market. I know not everybody, but most. And by the way, maybe it's not that they're billionaires. It's just that if you're earning $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year and you got 10, 12, 15 grand in the stock market and you're up 50,000 in the Dow, it's a lot. You're creating wealth. And people, I'm telling you, I don't know how it's going to be in November, but the stock market's going to be a factor in the midterms just like it was a factor in the general election.
It's a factor also because the mistake being made, and maybe lack of knowledge for some, is that somehow Main Street and Wall Street are disconnected.
Right.
Let's tie a couple things together, which includes the one big beautiful bill. The majority of, or the first really big tranche of e-file returns, typically those people in, middle income families, single or family units, those start coming back in February or March. So about 50 million or so Americans will see that. If you have a 401k program, a craft, something, whatever it is, some form of retirement, that matters to you. If you have other factors in your life that rely on credit, along with better credit numbers right now as far as interest rates, things are going to start looking better. So more money in your pocket, more there. The market looks at that, Larry. You know this. Americans will spend a certain amount of that 50 million or so. That's kind of the typical average. We'll spend some of that money. That's consumer activity. You look at the CE survey, consumer expenditure. You look at consumer price index. And then when you tack onto that the manufacturing numbers from last week, or this week actually, look really good, that means that we're probably going to see more stability in the hiring and maintaining and retention of jobs. Look, Americans like instant gratification. The plan here, Larry, and you and I know this, and so do you, Rich, is to make sure that people get actual results, not narratives and ginned up polls, or frankly, I don't care right, left, or otherwise, the pundits out there who are trying to tell a story to remain relevant for a week when the story really changes in a week or two.
Who's Bruce Melman? Does anybody know? Bruce Melman?
Is he a Democratic pollster? Or am I thinking
I think so, because Rove bases his column on this guy, Bruce Melman. Well, I think he is a Democrat.
He's another one of these. I mean, I don't know much about him, but he's another one of these consultants out there. They claim to be bipartisan. That's how they work. I don't know much about him other than that. But again, what I'm talking about is what people will actually see. So I don't care what Bruce Melman, or with all due respect, Carl, you or anyone say, because, again, what did I just say? When majority of those e-file returns, or the first big tranche comes out, and 50 million Americans or so see a difference. When other things kick in, this is why the one big beautiful bill, the tax parts of that needed to be already in place and passed to take effect. When you look at 100% expensing, that means jobs. That means retention of jobs. When those things kick in, it adds a lot more to the economy, and therefore how people really not just feel, but how they're able to act. And that then comes back around to how they feel.
They're getting, by the way, they're getting good wage increases. Profits are very strong. Profits drive stocks, but profits also drive the economy. And the 100% expensing, Rich, it may sound obscure, but that has given companies so much more profitability. I mean, they're being attacked. Amazon, for example, being attacked. I love this in the Wall Street Journal, the great pro-business newspaper. Anyway, Amazon's being attacked in a story because they're making use of the 100% expensing, immediate expensing, in order to build new plants, new equipment. They're going into AI, which scares the bejesus out of the other companies, blah, 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 blah. So that's – anyway, this is a good story. It's an underrated story. I'm just telling you, Dow 50,000 is a good sign for the GOP in the midterms. And if the stock market collapsed, I would say bad sign. But it's a good sign. And, of course, nobody's going to pay much attention to it except me. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to be the only one. But
well, that's enough.
You're not the only one, Larry, and I'll tell you, Americans just need to realize that their world has changed in a good way when it comes to the economy. They need to see the fruits of it. Fair point there. They will see the fruits of it. That's the thing the left can't stop. They can't stop reality. They can only try to change the narrative with polling.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. The narrative with polling, those polls are just awful. Rich, I'm going to change gears. Last night, Trump put out a long executive order let's see, 10:15 p.m. is when it came in to our mailboxes. Addressing threats to the United States by the government of Iran. And it's a barn burner, all right? I may be the only living human that reads this stuff because I used to be in this game, but it basically is a barn burner. The talks broke down. Iran, of course, wants to continue to enrich uranium and develop ICBMs. And, of course, the American position is stop on both counts. The troops are amassing the resources, the flotillas. What do you think, Rich? We're going to have another round of bombing in Iran?
Yeah, I think that the most important two words in terms of understanding Trump's foreign policy is coercive diplomacy. He's willing to talk. He wants to do peace deals, but he's holding a gun, or he might be holding a gun, behind his back or not. You don't know, right? You don't know whether he's going to follow through with the threat. And this is just what he's done with Iran so far. We got to see where it goes. I'd be skeptical of any deal, but it's so amazing because this is the most anti-American regime on earth, I think, in the sense that anti-Americanism was its founding purpose, one of its founding purposes. And for 50 years, we've just believed they can do anything, and we're not going to hit them, with the occasional exceptions, Ronald Reagan. Otherwise, I mean, they killed and maimed our guys in Iraq, the nuclear program. We can't do anything about it. We just have to talk to them about it and bless the deal, in effect, bless the program the way Obama did. And Trump threw all that out the window by directly hitting them with that nuclear strike. And if you're the Iranians, they don't take my advice, but I'd be really nervous. I would. The Maduro trade, I'm not sure whether I'd make that one, and just assume he's bluffing. So if he could really denude this regime or get a deal, again, I'm skeptical, but a deal worth having, that would be amazing. And then Cuba's on the plate too, and same deal. After the Bay of Pigs, are like this nasty little anti-American communist dictatorship. We can't do anything about it.
Well, there was
Trump has a different attitude.
No, that's right. By the way, I love coercive diplomacy. It's a great phrase. There was another executive order out yesterday. I think it was yesterday, or the day before, about Cuba. No more oil purchases. No, nothing. All right. So I don't know how the Cubans can survive. By the way, the Iranian, among the other things with Iran, David Webb, he slapped a 25% tariff. This is tariffs on so-called secondary tariffs. Any country that does business with Iran, and it's not just oil, can be anything, if you read through this executive order, will then get a 25% tariff on any and all business with the United States. And it can rise from there. And he makes it very clear. Commerce Department, State Department will determine the size of the tariff. So the noose is closing. I mean, I think it's true for Iran and Cuba, David Webb.
It is, and the thing is, these are all connected. The neophytes out there that haven't really been following foreign policy or don't pay attention, try to put them in silos, Iran in one, Cuba in another, Venezuela in other aspects. But they're all connected. Overarching strategy is to isolate Iran, and other factors come into play. The Russians have pulled a lot of their Mediterranean fleet out or are using them to escort the ghost ships out. So that helps isolate Iran even more. Cuba, because of what happened in Venezuela and Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico is not being as effective as propping up Cuba as she'd like to be. Cuba's now on the table. They're part of that Cuba-China connection, which also brings China into play in the Middle East. The more and more we isolate Iran, the more chance that they have to do what's necessary, bloody but necessary, unfortunately, in order to get rid of this theocratic dictatorship under the mullahs. And when you look at the IRGC, and their internal Al-Quds force and others, they're now facing a problem with the Kurds, who are also one more capable. That doesn't get a lot of attention, but that's helping to take a piece of the Iranian focus away from outside. So they're signaling in the Med, their boats, their drone occasionally. But what's happening is they're being isolated, and the instrument of national power that is the biggest here right now happens to be the economic power, where other nations can no longer be part of helping to prop up, even if they don't intend it in any evil way, prop up economically Iran.
Yeah. But by the way, with Cuba, Mexico actually has Scheinbaum is helping us on Cuba. No more oil, but there's hardly anybody left on the island. Everybody's left. Mm-hmm. It's like some Gilligan's Island cartoon thing. You come in there.
No, it's another case. California is not as a stark example of this, but you take a beautiful place, which should be a wonderful place, Cuba, where there should be massive, skyscrapers, and everyone should want to vacation there and have condos there, and you ruin it, right? Yeah. And this whole thing about, isn't it so nice and touching that they have such attachment to vintage cars? It's because they can't get any decent cars, right?
Vintage cars.
Car is nice to look at. It's not nice to run. It has to drive. And that's what communism has done.
I love those movies that show those old cars, but it has nothing to do with modern-day Cuba. How about the demise of the Washington Post? Not exactly, but they've lost it. I guess Jeff Bezos, the owner, the Amazon multi-billionaire, anyway, they've cut a third of the newsroom, I guess. That's what be reported. And Peggy Noonan, of course, is bemoaning the fact that the Washington Post is not going to be the great Washington newspaper. And I don't know. I mean, I think it became a left-wing rag. Honestly, I don't think anybody paid any mind to it. That's why they didn't make any money. That's why they had to cut a third of the newsroom. Rich Lowry's here, editor-in-chief of National Review. David Webb, Fox News contributor's here. He's a talk show host at Sirius XM. Thank you both for helping me on Saturday. I appreciate it. You know that. But one thing, Rich, so Peggy Noonan is bemoaning the Washington Post, blah, 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 blah. What about the Washington Times and the Washington Examiner? They're still going.
Yeah, there you go. You just have a problem with Wall Street Journal columnists today, Larry, between our friends Carl and Peggy. Excuse me. Look, one thing that's been so annoying about this is the idea that Jeff Bezos has some obligation to write a check to lose $100 million on this
right.
left-wing newspaper year after year, and he just doesn't.
I mean, right. It's exactly.
And you can make a left-wing rag work. The New York Times has worked as a business proposition, but they've been very creative. A lot of people go there for games. A lot of people go there for cooking. A lot of people go there for The Athletic, which is great sports coverage, sports website they gobbled up. And the Post kind of tried to adjust to the new era, but just failed. And now maybe Bezos has a plan going ahead. I hope he does. The editorial pages have gotten better. It's a free market page now, which is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, it is. You can tell how much, no one pays as much attention as they used to. Yeah, but they have a free market perspective now. I think that's one reason they've lost a lot of subscribers is because everyone is used to the slop.
Oh, yeah.
Putting out before. So there's a question whether they can kind of make the adjustment and win a new audience. I kind of hope it works. I like newspapers. I like them to survive. And if there's a better, more reasonable Washington Post, that would be fantastic. But again, he has no obligation to fund this thing that was failing. Like, none of the journalists complaining seem to have any introspection about the fact that their product was losing $100 million a year.
Yeah. So the lefties don't trust him anymore because of the editorial page, but the reporters are not good. I mean, through the years, I have dealt with the economic reporters, the fiscal reporters and so forth, and with only a few exceptions, they're very biased. In fact, I sort of, when I was in the White House, preferred some of the political reporters I thought were better than the economic reporters. At least they quoted you properly. But David Webb, what about, look, you've got two conservative papers in the Washington Times and the Washington Examiner. They both have very strong online presences. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with this is, one, a lot of people are looking at it the wrong way. I did my own analysis of the Washington Post, and I did do it versus the other newspapers, including the newspaper industry where I worked a long time ago. Newspaper industry overall had declined. The Washington Post, even prior to Bezos' purchase, was already declining. They had run into a number of issues. So this is not necessarily just a left-right story. It's about also not serving the greater population, and that's one of the biggest mistakes by the Post. The Times and the Examiner are there, and yes, while they lean more right than left, to be fair, they also serve the reporting that's needed out there, and that's the difference. And they have an online capacity, better online, whereas the Post was declining. It once was a bigger player, from about 68 million uniques a month, but that began to decline over the last decade plus. This is not Trump's fault or the left.
They're pulling the plug on us. They're pulling the plug on us because we're capitalists here at WABC. Anyway, gentlemen, I appreciate it very, very much. Rich Lowry, thank you. David Webb, thank you. Washington Post, bye-bye.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.